Emma Wells was 30 years old when the lie that destroyed her life finally came full circle. 5 years earlier, her older sister Clara told their parents that Emma had dropped out of medical school. That single lie cut her out of the family like she had never existed. They blocked her number, skipped her graduation, and never attended her wedding. For 5 long years she lived as no one's daughter. But everything changed the night Clara was rushed into the emergency room, bleeding and unconscious. When their mother saw the name on the surgeon's coat, she grabbed her husband and whispered, "Please tell me this isn't real." Before that night in the year, the last time Emma remembered her father looking at her with pride was back in 2018, at their kitchen table in Hartford. Growing up, the Wells family had 2 daughters, but only one ever seemed to matter. Clara was outgoing, charming, and always performing. Adults adored her. Emma, on the other hand, preferred her science books and quiet corners at family gatherings. "At least Clara makes an effort," their mother often said. Emma told herself she didn't need the attention. But deep down she always hoped her parents would one day truly see her. In 8th grade, Emma was the only student from her school who made it to the state science fair. That same weekend, Clara had a small community theater play. Their parents chose the play. When Emma brought home her second-place ribbon, her father gave it a glance and said, "That's nice, Em." He didn't ask what the project was about. He never did. Emma poured herself into her studies, believing excellence would force them to notice her. When she received her acceptance letter to Oregon Medical School, she finally heard the words she had waited her whole childhood for, "Maybe you'll become someone after all." Clara had been visiting that weekend and she watched everything quietly. Their mother called neighbors, relatives, even an old friend just to brag. For the first time in her life, Emma felt the warm light of her parents' pride. But when she looked at Clara, she noticed a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "So, Portland, huh?" Clara asked, stirring her tea. "Long way from home." Emma laughed nervously. "It's exciting." Clara nodded, but her voice held something sharp. "Just don't forget where you came from." At the time, Emma thought her sister was simply teasing her. That week, Clara began calling Emma constantly. "How's your packing? Who's your roommate? What are your classes like?" she asked, remembering every detail Emma shared. Emma believed it meant her sister finally cared. She didn't know she was handing Clara ammunition. 2 years later, when Emma took a temporary leave from school to care for her sick best friend, Clara saw her moment. Emma told her in confidence, hoping for support. Instead, 3 days later, Emma's phone rang. Her father's cold voice said, "Your sister told us everything. The lies, the dropping out, all of it." Emma stood frozen in a hospital hallway whispering, "Dad, please. It's not true." Emma's heart pounded as she tried to explain. "Dad, I filed a leave of absence. I'm caring for my friend. I can show you the paperwork." But he cut her off. "Your sister showed us the messages," he said sharply. "She showed us proof." Emma leaned against the wall for balance, whispering, "What messages?" Her mother's voice entered the call, trembling with disappointment. "How could you lie to us for a whole year, Emma?" Before she could speak again, her father ended the call with 6 brutal words. "Don't contact us until you're honest." Emma stared at her silent phone, still warm in her hands. For 5 days she called 14 times. The first few went to voicemail. Then her father blocked her. 2 days later, her mother did the same. She sent 2 emails with her documents attached, begging them to read. She even mailed a handwritten letter, hoping it might reach their hearts. 5 days later, it returned unopened. She recognized her mother's handwriting on the envelope. Emma sat on her bed that night and whispered to herself, "They didn't even give me a chance." Her friend Lily died that winter after months of fighting cancer. Emma sat beside her during her final breath, holding her hand as the monitor went flat. No family member called because none of them knew. Clara had told them, "Emma doesn't want anything to do with us." Emma planned a small funeral. Only 6 people came, including a nurse who had grown fond of Lily. That night, Emma stared at Lily's old notebooks and found a yellow sticky note that read, "Finish what you started. Don't let anyone steal your future." Those words rebuilt her. Emma returned to medical school with no family support and barely enough money to survive. She took extra loans, worked late-night shifts as a research assistant, and ate leftover cafeteria meals when she could. "Life doesn't stop because you're hurting," she told herself each morning. She pushed through 12-hour clinical rotations, exhaustion, and lonely nights. Professors praised her focus. Residents admired her drive. When graduation came, no one from her family attended. Emma stood in her cap and gown, smiling in photos taken by a classmate, pretending she didn't feel a hollow space where parents should have been. Years later, Emma became a trauma surgeon at Mercyview Medical Center, one of the busiest hospitals in her state. She met Dr. Margaret Hayes, the chief of surgery, a woman who became the mentor she never had at home. She also met Daniel, a civil rights attorney with calm eyes and a steady voice. After hearing her story, he said softly, "You deserved better." Those 4 words built a new foundation in her heart. They married in a small backyard ceremony with 30 guests. Emma mailed an invitation to her parents out of courtesy. Like her letter years earlier, it came back unopened. 5 years passed, and Emma built a life that didn't depend on anyone who once discarded her. She became known for her calm hands in chaos and her ability to save patients others thought were gone. She and Daniel bought a small home with a bright porch where morning light spilled across the steps. They adopted a golden retriever named Milo, who followed Emma from room to room. But some wounds never fully closed. On quiet nights, she still wondered why her parents never questioned Clara's story. How could they believe her so easily? She whispered more than once. Her Aunt Rose was the only family member who stayed in touch. Every Sunday afternoon she called to check on Emma. "Your parents are doing fine," Rose often said, her voice soft. "Clara divorced 2 years ago and started selling medical devices." Emma always listened quietly, never asking for updates but never stopping them either. One evening Rose's voice changed. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you about Clara," she said cautiously. But before she could finish, Emma's hospital pager beeped loudly. She promised to call back, not knowing her life was already shifting toward the next collision. At 3:07 a.m. the next morning, Emma's pager dragged her out of a deep sleep. Daniel murmured, half awake, "Be safe, Em." The screen flashed level 1 trauma. Female driver. 33. Unstable vitals. Emma dressed in minutes, drove through empty streets and mentally reviewed the likely injuries from a high-speed crash. When she reached the trauma bay, the team was already preparing. She picked up the intake tablet and read the name. Clara Wells. Emma froze. The hallway noise faded, replaced by the hollow memory of her father's voice saying, "Don't call until you're honest." Emma steadied herself as the ambulance doors opened. Clara lay unconscious, pale and bleeding, her breathing shallow behind an oxygen mask. Behind the stretcher came 2 people Emma hadn't seen in 5 years, her parents. Her mother was in a thin housecoat, hair messy, face ashen. Her father looked shaken, gripping the wall for support. "That's my daughter," he shouted at the nurse. "Where's the surgeon?" The nurse replied, "The chief surgeon is preparing." Emma saw her father stiffen with urgency. "Then get me the chief now." The nurse glanced at Emma, eyes widening as she read her badge. Emma entered the scrub room, letting the hot water run over her hands as she stared at her reflection. Her face looked calm, but inside she felt a storm. "I can hand this case to another surgeon," she whispered. But Clara was dying and Emma was the best chance she had. She paged Dr. Patel. "I'm disclosing a conflict of interest," she said firmly. "If my judgment slips, you take over." Patel replied, "Understood, Chief." Emma pulled on her gloves, stepped through the operating room doors, and looked down at the sister who had destroyed her life, and the patient she had sworn to save. For nearly 4 hours, Emma worked with precision, repairing the damage the crash had torn through Clara's body. "Clamp," she said calmly. "Suction. Retract." Her hands moved with the confidence of someone who had rebuilt lives before, even when her own felt broken. Dr. Patel watched silently from the corner, ready to step in but never needing to. When the final stitch was placed and Clara's vitals stabilized, he said quietly, "Emma, that was excellent work." She nodded, removing her gloves. "I'll speak to the family." She wasn't ready for them, but she was ready for the truth to begin. The waiting room was silent when Emma walked in. Her parents sat side by side, eyes red, hands trembling. They didn't recognize her at first, not until their eyes dropped to her badge. Dr. Emma Wells, Chief of Trauma Surgery. Her father's mouth fell open. You're the chief?" he whispered. Emma kept her tone steady. "Your daughter survived surgery. She's stable now. Her mother stepped forward with shaking arms, tears falling. Emma, please. Emma took a single step back, gentle but firm. Mrs. Wells, visitation will begin in 1 hour. The title cut deeper than any anger could. Her father struggled to speak. We thought you dropped out, he said, voice cracking. Clara showed us messages. She said. Emma interrupted softly. None of it was true. Not one word. Her mother covered her mouth, shaking her head. The letters, she whispered. You said you sent letters. Emma nodded. 2 emails with my documents, 1 handwritten letter. You returned it unopened. Her father stared at the floor, unable to look at her. We didn't know, he muttered. Emma replied calmly. You didn't check. Behind her, nurses exchanged quiet glances. The truth was loud enough for everyone to hear. Later that morning, Clara opened her eyes in the ICU. The anesthesia softened her voice but not the shock. She looked at Emma's badge, then back at her face. You're a doctor, she whispered. And you're the chief? Emma nodded. I've been for 2 years. Clara's expression shifted from confusion to fear, then to something Emma recognized: calculation. I can explain, Clara began quickly. Emma shook her head. Not to me. She pointed toward the hallway window where their parents stood, broken. You explain it to them. Emma left the room without waiting for Clara's answer. The confrontation that followed was heard through the entire ICU unit. When her parents walked in, Clara burst into tears. I never meant for it to go this far, she sobbed. Her father's voice trembled with rage and grief. Emma called 14 times. She sent proof. She asked Rose to intervene. You told us she abandoned us. Clara shook her head. She exaggerates. Stop, her mother said sharply. Your aunt showed us everything. Every email. Every lie. Clara stared at the ceiling, cornered by the truth she had built. For the first time she had nowhere left to hide. Aunt Rose arrived at the hospital just after sunrise, carrying 5 years' worth of truth on her phone. She walked into Clara's ICU room without hesitation. I'm done staying quiet, she said firmly. She held up her screen and showed Emma's parents every email Emma had sent, including the PDF of her leave of absence signed by the dean. Then she read aloud a message Clara had sent years earlier. Don't tell Mom and Dad about Emma's residency. They're finally at peace. Clara closed her eyes as if the words themselves weighed hundreds of pounds. No one defended her now. Emma's mother sank into a chair, reading each email slowly, her hands shaking. She paused at one message Emma had written before graduation. I'm still your daughter, it said. I wish you were here. Her mother covered her face, letting out a broken sound that didn't feel like crying. It felt like regret made physical. Her father stood at the window, shoulders trembling. Rose said quietly, You didn't lose Emma. You walked away. Clara stared at the ceiling, jaw tight. Her father whispered, What have we done? But the truth didn't need an answer. It only needed to be seen. When Emma returned to check on Clara, her parents stood up immediately. Her mother tried to speak. Emma, sweetheart, we're so... Emma lifted her hand gently. I hear you. But sorry is only the beginning. Her father nodded slowly, defeated. We want to fix this, he murmured. Emma met his eyes with calm strength. Then you must understand something. I'm not the girl you pushed aside. I built a life without you, and if you want a place in it, you follow my terms. Her father swallowed hard but said nothing. For the first time his silence held accountability instead of power. Emma looked at Clara, who lay quietly with tired eyes. When you recover, Emma said softly, you and I will have a real conversation. But not today. Clara didn't argue. For once she had no performance left. Hours later, Clara was discharged to continue healing at home. Emma chose a neutral cafe for their meeting 2 weeks later. Daniel came too, sitting at a nearby table in case she needed support. When Clara arrived, she sat with her hands wrapped around a cup she didn't drink from. Emma spoke first. I'm not here to punish you. I'm here for the truth. Clara stared at the tabletop for nearly a full minute before whispering, because you were becoming everything I wasn't and I couldn't handle it. Emma didn't flinch. That's honest, she replied quietly. But honesty doesn't undo the damage. Clara nodded, tears forming. I'm sorry, Em. Emma sighed softly. Sorry doesn't return the years. But I'm willing to rebuild, if you repair the harm you caused. Claire looked up, confused. How? Emma leaned forward. You will tell the truth to everyone you lied to. Family, cousins, neighbors. All of them. And you will do it in writing. Clara nodded slowly. I will. Emma met with her parents the following week. Daniel drove her and stayed outside while she sat at the familiar kitchen table, the same place where everything had once fallen apart. Her mother folded her hands tightly. Her father looked older than she remembered. Emma spoke gently but with unshakable clarity. I'm open to rebuilding, she said, but not by pretending the past didn't happen. Her mother nodded, crying softly. Her father took a long breath. Tell us what we need to do, he said. Emma replied, You'll start counseling. Both of you. Not for me. For yourselves. Her father frowned at first. We don't do that in this family, he muttered. Emma leaned back slightly. Exactly. That's why everything fell apart. Her mother touched his arm. Jerry, we have to try. He looked at her, then at Emma, and something inside him finally cracked. Fine, he whispered. Emma stood to leave but paused at the doorway. One more thing, she said softly. Daniel's father walked me down the aisle. That's not something we can undo. But if you want to know future grandchildren, you start now. Her parents nodded, humbled in ways they weren't used to. Clara kept her promise. On a Wednesday night, she sent a long email to all 47 relatives in the family group. Emma didn't read it immediately. She let it sit until morning, when Daniel brought her coffee and quietly placed her laptop on the table. The message was simple and direct. Clara confessed to lying about Emma leaving medical school, fabricating evidence, and maintaining the deception for 5 years. She ended with, Emma never abandoned this family. I made sure everyone believed she did. That was my doing alone. Replies came slowly, many filled with shock, disappointment, and sadness. Emma's grandmother called her directly. I'm 89, she said, voice thin but steady. And I have never been lied to so thoroughly by my own blood. Forgive me for not seeing the truth. Emma closed her eyes, touched by the sincerity. You were lied to, Nana. You did nothing wrong. Cousins emailed apologies. A few relatives asked to meet her. Others simply said they were proud of her. Clara, meanwhile, received fewer responses. People didn't attack her. They simply stopped believing her. For someone who had lived her entire life on the strength of her words, that silence was punishment enough. Emma's parents began counseling with a therapist in West Haven, a calm woman named Dr. Reed. Her mother embraced the sessions quickly, crying often and admitting how much she had ignored. Her father struggled, speaking in short sentences and avoiding difficult topics. But little by little he softened. He started admitting how his pride had shaped his decisions. Rose later told Emma, Your father finally said the words, I was wrong. I nearly fell out of my chair. Emma kept her distance, but she listened. Healing wasn't quick, but it was beginning. Quietly, imperfectly, steadily. Claire attended therapy too, separately. Emma only learned this because Claire mentioned it awkwardly during their second coffee meeting. I'm trying, Clara said, eyes tired, voice small. I don't expect forgiveness. I just don't want to be that person anymore. Emma stirred her drink slowly. Forgiveness isn't a door, she said. It's a road. And you walk it. Clara nodded, not arguing. She looked older, quieter, stripped of the confidence that once hid every flaw. For the first time in their lives, Emma felt like she was talking to Clara the person, not Clara the performer. Emma and Daniel attended the Physician of the Year gala that spring. The ballroom was full of doctors, administrators, and donors. When Emma's name was announced, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Emma kept her speech short. 5 years ago I almost quit, she said. Not because the work was too hard, but because I lost people I thought I needed. But life has a way of giving you the people who truly choose you. She glanced at Daniel, at her mentor Dr. Hayes, and at Rose in the third row. Then she noticed 2 familiar figures in the back. Her parents sat quietly in the last row, hands folded in their laps, watching her with a mixture of grief and pride. Emma finished her speech with calm strength. Sometimes the people who return are not the same people who left. And sometimes, neither are you. Applause filled the room. After the gala, Emma's father found Daniel near the coat rack. I owe you an apology, he said, voice thick. Daniel shook his head gently. With respect, sir, you should have been there. But we're here now. They shook hands. Her father didn't let go right away. A month later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Emma was making French toast while Daniel brewed coffee. Snow floated softly outside the window. Milo waited under the table, full of hope for crumbs. The doorbell rang. When Emma opened it, her parents stood on the porch holding a bottle of orange juice and a tin of cookies. "Hi," her mother said nervously. "We weren't sure if—" Emma stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Her father asked, "Can I help with something?" She smiled faintly. "You can set the table." He nodded and counted 4 plates, placing them with unexpected care. Emma watched her parents as they sat at her kitchen table for the first time in years. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Her mother hugged her gently, not with drama but with sincerity. Her father looked around the home she built and whispered, "Thank you for letting us try." Emma took a slow breath. "This is a beginning," she said softly. She wasn't the abandoned daughter anymore. She wasn't the broken one waiting for approval. She was a woman who rebuilt her own life, and opened the door only when she chose. 4 plates. A new start.